Welcome back to Girls Steam Ahead. Today we have Bratati Lynn joining us from the Facebook Data Center, where she is the lead construction manager, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what that is, how she got there, and we'll just get to dive into some fun details. Welcome.
Hi, happy to join you.
So can you give us just a little bit of a day in the life of being a construction manager, the lead construction manager at the center?
Sure. As most people, my days are not always the same. And that's actually what I really love about the work I do. Construction changes every day. You're progressing, you're building. And so some of the challenges that we face end up being, again, different every day. But generally, we get to the site around 7 o'clock and start off with stretch and flex and get everybody warmed up and ready to go, and go over some safety items before we get to work. I try to walk the site at least once a week and meet the people and just see what the progress is. But a lot of my day ends up being spending time with the engineers who designed the facility to make sure that what they had in mind is what we're building. I spend some time talking to the operations folks, the people who will actually use the facility after we finish constructing it. So again, to make sure that what we're building meets their needs. And then from time to time, I get to spend time out in the community and talking about Facebook and what we're doing. And that's always exciting as well.
So you wear a lot of hats.
Yes.
So I love that you start your day with a little bit of stretch time with the team, getting everybody ready. It's just like, a team building time there. Let's talk a little bit about all the different roles you play. Sure. As lead construction manager. Let's starting with kind of the working with the team and the construction taking place on the site. What kind of background do you have that led you to this type of position? How long have you been in the construction field, or where did you start in terms of your education?
Okay. So first of all, I should say that ever since I was 5, I loved construction. I just loved watching it, when we lived in a subdivision and other buildings or houses were being built, I just thought it was really cool. So maybe I was unusual, but I have a degree in civil engineering from Georgia Tech. I didn't actually early on in my life understand that a career in construction was possible for me. So I thought I would stick to engineering, where I could at least be involved from the design standpoint, as far as saying, what the structure should look like, how big the columns should be, and things like that. And I thought that was as close as I could get to being a construction manager, because I've been in this industry for 30 years. And so this was a long time ago, like in the 70s and 80s, and it wasn't a typical career choice for women. So I thought I was trying to get as close as I could to my passion. But in those 30 years, I've been very fortunate in that having that engineering background that gives you the principles of, why we do what we do, like how big a column should be to make sure the building doesn't fall down, for example. That's important, right? But in turn, being able to get out into the construction site and working with the back then were the construction managers to make sure that they were following through with it, and they also understood why it was important to do it just this way that I had designed it. And I think in some ways that's been a great full circle moment, right? So nowadays I don't design it anymore. There's another team that does, but that background that I have helps me communicate with them and make sure that we're building the facility the way that we need to make sure it functions properly and safely. So that's and then the end point of having people use it, to me, is very fulfilling. Like I know I don't literally build anything, but but working together, we are building something, and yeah, I find that really satisfying and exciting.
Well, it's definitely a team job. I don't think any one person could build something as large
Right.
as that data center. It sounds like you definitely have been able to use all the languages that you've learned over the years in the different roles that you've played. So I was thinking about it as you were talking, the fact that you have that civil engineering background and you took that step first really put you in a great position to be able to then take over the other side because you can
Yes.
speak both sides of the process of building. And I think it's really, you mentioned, construction wasn't something that women went into when you were deciding on your career path, but neither was civil engineering really. So you still went into a field that would have
Yes.
been challenging as a woman to enter.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, even in school, there were 4 guys to every girl, and I'm sure it's better now. But a generation before me, it would have been like 20 boys to every girl, and so it is changing. And I do, but I think there are so many things about engineering that that would be very exciting for girls and women. I mean, as a civil engineer, we're actually, civil is short for civilian. The original engineers were military engineers. And so what I like about being a civil engineer is we're the engineers for people, for civilization. So almost everything you touch in a day involved some civil engineer putting some thought into it, whether it's how you drive to work or school, because we're transportation engineers, structural engineers, sanitary water systems and things like that. Everything we need as a community came from civil engineering. And so that's very exciting to me to be a part of that community.
I love that description to think about it as we're engineering for the people. And it's
Yeah,
not an abstract concept. It's not something that nobody's going to really see
right.
the impact of. It's truly impactful.
And we're engineering not for men, but for the whole community, for families and things like that. So that's the other reason we really do need women in this industry, is because to think about what services and what the whole community needs, not just half the community.
That's right. Because you need, I mean, in all fields, and this one in particular, I really am getting that sense of the input that is needed to identify the best solutions for the community really require the voices of many different community members and
Exactly.
the experiences. So I love that you shared that from like 5 years old, you love construction. So I have some children, obviously working at the works. I see children here all the time as well. And we always have, I feel like it's a phase that a lot of kids go through, and then some of them stick with that joy of building
Yeah.
and
Uh,
figuring out how to make things work,
the,
design
the
challenges.
really pretty big yellow equipment. How exciting is that? I mean,
Right. It really is. And it's funny
I
because
love it.
you think it's only for kids, but you see just as many adults get really excited about
Yes.
those big pieces of equipment because you don't get to see them very
Right.
often. So did you have, I mean, you had those experiences obviously when you were young and you identified that passion. You were so fortunate to, be able to just follow that along. Did you have folks during your early life or in your career that really supported you, gave you advice that you think is additionally good to share to other future builders?
Sure. Well, yeah, I was very fortunate. My father is also an engineer, and so he certainly encouraged me and did not ever put into my head the idea that it was for men only. So that I mean, the it, he fed my passion in many ways. We always took trips and went to different exhibits that might show how a dam works. I know that sounds silly, but I actually really love it.
I loved those
or,
trips when I was little.
or we'd stand beside a construction site and he'd describe what was going on and things like that. So he worked in nuclear power construction, but so he's my hero, and really the biggest promoter, and still today he's very proud of me, and that makes me feel proud of myself, of course. Beyond that, though, I do think that there were a couple of folks along the way. There were certainly a lot of detractors that said, this is, the guys are going to be rough on you. Construction people are so mean and this and that. And actually that wasn't true, but there were other folks, though, that just said what I feel was the truth. A lot of senior leaders that I met along the way that said, look, people are people. And so if you show up respecting the people you're working with, they will show you respect as well. So that has been really amazing and transformative in my life. I never showed up thinking, oh no, I'm just a girl. There are all these guys. I was there to do a job. I wanted to help them do their job better, and then they helped me do my job better. And at this point, there are actually a lot more women in construction, which is really exciting. But yeah, in the early days, they were all guys, and they were pretty supportive, even though I was I was the different person, but they kind of thought it was exciting that I was interested in what they were doing and wanted to learn. And so I had a couple of mentors along the way that helped me learn about construction and safety and quality, because all of those things are important in building.
Great advice. So let's talk a little bit now about like what you're doing at the construction site, right? So I know that you mentioned kind of like your day-to-day about how you work with the different crews, making sure that you're talking to both sides, both the builders and the users. Is this site different than other sites that you've worked on?
Yeah, actually. So Facebook is, honestly, there are lots of companies, right? Every time you use your phone or computer, you're working through something called a data center. And so this is the first data center I've ever worked on. And so that's been exciting and a lot of learning for me. But it's the scale of what we're doing is massive, because as you can imagine, the growth of how everybody using their computers has been massive. So I think we have about 700 acres here, and we are typically building 2 and 3 facilities at the same time. And so it's a lot of moving parts and pieces. So there are so many people involved. We have 1,000 people out on the job site right now constructing. I mean, that's really massive. And we'll continue constructing for a couple of years. I mean, there's a lot more to build. And then the other thing that I find fascinating about New Albany, Ohio, for example, is there are so many other tech companies here building and have established centers. There's Amazon and Google data centers here as well. And so we're kind of a high-tech city now. So that's exciting to be a part of.
Yeah, there's been a lot of growth in that area, even over just the past couple of years, to see these companies that everybody recognizes their names, right? And so to see how they're growing and changing that footprint's been really exciting.
Yeah. So when you think, oh, well, I'm working in the cloud or on the internet, it's not out in space or somewhere else. It's right here.
Right in New Albany.
Yes.
Now, I've been fortunate enough to get inside some of the buildings that you're on the data center site. So to see some of the work you've done, and you're right. It's not only is it 700 acres and multiple construction sites, they're just massive, right? Yes. Insanely large buildings. So great job on that construction. Those beams are still standing, like you mentioned. Yes. And we can't wait to see what else comes out of that center as it continues to grow. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your day in the life of being a construction manager and how you got there. I hope that it inspired those other youth out there, our viewers, anybody who's just been interested in civil engineering, in construction, and hearing about how, well, really how you say it, how awesome of a career it is.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, there's plenty of room for other people. So come on over
Yes.
into construction and into engineering. I mean, it's a booming industry. And in my 30-year career, I haven't been unemployed or suffered from a lack of opportunity. So it's a great field to get into.
That is always good to hear for
Yes.
for both parents and youth that might be considering it. All right, so thank you, Bratati, and we'll see our viewers next time with another story on Girls Steam Ahead.
Thank you.